everyone. I'm Abby, and you're here for Ask DeAnna Anything. DeAnna Batdorf is an Ayurvedic practitioner, mind body educator, a lymphatic specialist, and DeAnna Essentials formulator. The DeAnna Essentials mission is to be a place for all people to heal, learn, and grow. We provide a community of support to empower individuals with knowledge, tools, and skills for their optimal well-being. So you're here today for Ask DeAnna Anything, where nothing is TMI for DeAnna. So welcome, DeAnna. So glad we're here together.
Yeah, nice to be back. We had a couple, a couple ones that, shifted around for us. And so here we are, and I really, missed it. And, it's become such a beautiful routine in my life to just make myself available for whatever questions anyone has. And when I think of, I have a question. I'm the one getting questions, but guess what? I have a question. So I have a question that I think pertains to every single person in the world, which is our right to decide whether we would like to have a baby or not. And that's kind of a really big question. And then that brings up questions of like, what is at our disposal to make sure we do that in the most integrous, beautiful, respectable, honorable, sacred way. And we really should be thinking more about how do we make our choices and our rights sacred versus just wait and see what happens and there's no control and it puts shame in intimacy, which is no way to be being in pleasure with somebody. And it puts us in this very disadvantaged position where all of a sudden we might need an abortion. And then now we have a whole new world of like, where do you get one of those?
Yeah. Scary times.
And we used to be able to get one of those as our right when needed. And so as that has all shifted in our world recently, hopefully people have been watching some of my social media, fun little tidbits, because, I like to keep you educated all month long. And by the way, August is odorous natures.
Ooh.
So, I like to talk about these things that, we're hiding, even our odor. And we know when we're fertile by our odor, and we know when we're getting ready to go into a cleanse, which is the bleeding process for a woman and for a man, because they have a monthly cycle too, because guess what? They also live on the earth connected to the planets.
Yeah.
There's nothing different. So as they
We all have a moon.
We all have moon. We all have new moon. We all have a full moon. And so we really need to be checking those odors. So stay with me this month if you want to know more about that piece. But I'm here to answer a couple questions, because the one thing we should agree on, everybody, is that we really don't need to be creating life when we don't want one.
Definitely.
And I think everybody can agree. And that's a crux for everybody. That's like where it all meets and gets all messy and knotted up. And people have tried to, unwind that into their direction and are doing very well. But it's changing the all. So for me, I'm still all about the all, no matter what's going on. And no, we shouldn't be doing that. So I did a 12-minute video that I'm hoping everyone's going to watch. And I hope you're also going to pass it on to as many people as you can, because it's about reading early pregnancy on the pinky. And we can read whether we're pregnant or not. And I go through the whole process in that video. It's a learning curve of learning how to read your heart pumping in your blood vessel. But everyone can do that. I've been teaching students to do that. I've been teaching teens, to do that for my whole career. So it can be done. And one of the things I make a point of in that video is if you read somebody's pulse who wants to be pregnant, because let's not forget, I also work in the pregnancy world. I work in fertility, helping people get pregnant, have healthy, beautiful family development and the easiest labor possible, because labor is the hardest thing ever. So you might as well make it as easy as you can. So I'm really pro, having children and really, knowing that that is such a depth of value, but also the choice to not. And so that pinky, I might be tracking it for the health of the baby through a whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
But it's also, and if someone's pregnant, you're going to feel it. That's how you'll learn the best. You read someone who's pregnant and you will know, oh, that dink she's talking about is actually there. Someone just confirmed that with me yesterday. And they're like, my friend was pregnant. I read it. It was there. And then when you don't want to be pregnant, but you're wondering, did, the Parsley douche, or what I talk about, the Parsley tampon, what if those didn't work? What if you were massaging your uterus and doing some of those vigorous motions for downward motion? And those, you're just like, did they work? Did they not? I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
Uncomfortable time when
you're at like 15, 20 days in your cycle.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know, Am I feeling my menses and PMS, or am I feeling pregnancy? And that pinky shows up. It's one of the earliest stages. And I've been able to find that little pinky pulse on people before the pregnancy test even kind of showed negative or positive. Not always. So there's some variables, but these are tools. Is this 100% surefire? No. But when I was just at Spirit Weavers, and when I'm going to be at Symposium in the first 2 weekends of September, the Women's Herbal Symposium, when I'm in those places with that many women, I mean, you just have no idea how many people come up to me like, hi, DeAnna.
Check my pinky.
And I'm like, there's no doubt. I know exactly what they want. The question I always have in that moment is, do they want a yes or do they want a no? And then what's the truth? According to what I find in opinion or how I read that pulse. I'm not always right, but I've gotten confident enough to know I've been right way more times than I've been wrong, And so, hey, that's just kind of how life is. There is a little bit of a, sometimes baby little souls hide and you can't feel them. And sometimes they're already on their way out because they have a sense that womb didn't really completely choose them. And so there's a weakness, and then the pulse is weak, but they might be pregnant. So there's variables. But I really want everyone to watch the video and share this information, because there's nothing worse than sitting in that timeline of full on stress. And some women will do it for 2 months because they're so frozen and scared that they lose the cycle. And then and you can have some spotting. And so then you're like, was that it? Was it not? And then all of a sudden you're like, really, 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 really? And quite some weeks can go by. And then all of a sudden you're 6 weeks out, So that dink gives you this just a little bit of even a second opinion, And so there's that. And then there's the Parsley. So I want you all to look it up because you can find it. I've been talking about it all month. I don't like to sit in anger with things that I know I'm frustrated, and I was angry and affected by, choices made. And it feels like we're going backwards. And I know I feel that way, but I'm kind of more in the wait, doesn't this just mean we all need better education so we don't need as many abortion clinics? Shouldn't we know how to do that? Because there's safe ways to do that. And so what I'm going to talk about a little bit in the next month is the layer of wild carrot seed. So you got your pinky for some backup. You got your Parsley douches and your Parsley tampon, and you can do those, which are diuretics. So they pull that sperm back so it can't get upstream and implant. Where do you think you're going? Where do you think you're going upstream? I do not think so. I do not want you going upstream. That is my egg. Hello, stay away. Boundary, consent. And you just pull that, sperm right back down. And it's, Parsley is not really an abortive, and it's not fertility related. It's just going to dry your yoni out a little, but that's okay. You can swab some oil in there, because guess what? You also get to touch yourself whenever you want, wherever you want. So you just swab some oil up in there, and douching takes 5 minutes after you make the tea. It's so easy. So, this is things we have the right to try, and we have the right to explore our bodies and make our choices and know there is things we can do early on. And then we'll talk about wild carrot seed too. And that's been my birth control since I was 19 years old.
Wow.
Literally.
Hmm.
And it has been effective. I have stayed completely fertile, so it does not do any infertility.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it is not an abortive. I hear some people speaking a little bit more about using it as an abortive. I don't see it working in that way, or its chemistry doesn't really lean me that way. But making sure that ovum, that egg, is so protected chemistry-wise, because wild carrot seed is a preservative for tissues.
Interesting.
Like, it even binds a wound and seals it up. And it's amazing for skin and wound care. Very anti-aging. So that's all strength. Well, it strengthens that egg and it makes it harder for the sperm to implant. And the longer you use it, the more effective and the more you can trust it. And also something I'm, talked about. So look it up. And, but that's 3 drops a day, half the month. It's from the very early of ovulation to the end of ovulation. So whether you're using a fertility app, a tracking app, or, whether you're doing a fertility lens, though they aren't looking nearly as effective as they used to be, or temperature, there's a lot of ways to check that. But the moment it's and I always say, just 7 days after you stop menses, stay on it for 2 weeks, and then you're off of it for another week. That's just and sure, not everyone's 30 days, but that'll be a really good, broad, fertile time. It's more than needed, basically.
Yeah.
And carrot seed's not going to hurt you. And again, it's not destroying anything. It's protecting your tissues and strengthening that structure, and you're still going to ovulate and ripen out of that egg and, and go through your whole process. It's just going to make sure you don't build a baby if you don't want to. Yeah. And don't use too many essential oils, and definitely don't use wild carrot seed on the regular if you want to build a baby. And so those are the safe things I wanted to bring up today, and the questions all of us should be answering, and the things we should all be utilizing as our right, and the simple natural tools. I mean, how much do you think wild carrot seed can help people when it is growing wild?
It's everywhere right now.
And I mean, I have never seen this much wild carrot seed, and it's always in this region. Yeah. But it's insane how much. And then here's cars just whoosh, whoosh, whipping by it on the freeway. And it's just I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm strong. I stopped and harvested some last week. And I looked down and I smelled something familiar. I'm picking the wild carrot seed, and I've been keeping it around a lot. And I literally picked them off, and I go, God, I know that smell. That's not carrot seed. What is that? And I look down and here, and if you've never seen how pennyroyal grows, it is so beautiful. So beautiful. And here, the pennyroyal, a true abortive, in your time of need, but you better know what you're doing. So that's a further conversation before you go just trying it. That's safety. You need to know what you're doing with abortives. You don't want to leave yourself infertile. It's not worth it. You might change your mind no matter how you feel now, and fertile is also, anti-aging.
Yeah. So
we want to stay fertile because that's our juice hormones that make sure we look like this, because eventually when you get 53, hi, you look a little more like this.
You look amazing.
But I used to look like this.
Love all parts of life. Yeah.
It's the way it goes. But that pennyroyal was just growing right along that carrot seed, wild on the side of the freeway. And I was just like, see, this is sitting right here in front of us at our disposal, But I'm into wild carrot seed essential oil, just so you know. It's the most effective. It's got the highest potency. And let's remember that essential oils are transdermal. You just rub it on your pubis bone in your lower abdomen, that 3 drops, put it in your palm, rub it around. It's transdermal, and then it goes right to your bloodstream. And you have some of the cleanest chemistry, just those pure volatile gas chemical compounds, and that's where you're going to get the highest amount. Remember, if you're eating carrot seeds or taking the tincture, it's all going via your gut. So anything that needs healing and mending, You know, like I actually like wild carrot seed for leaky gut because it's a gut that needs mending, and carrot seed's very good at that. But your gut's going to use it up.
Got
So
it.
how
So
long?
it
May
down
not.
to
Yeah, you know, reproductive is 7 tissues out:
Mm.
lymph, blood, muscles, skin, bones, nerves, reproductive. So you want something that can just right now straight to the ovaries.
Mhm.
You know, I just rub it on my upper hips, which is where your ovaries are, by the way. You know, and I find women don't even really know exactly where their ovaries are.
Yeah.
I'm like, you go to the top of your hip and you go down an inch and in an inch, and they're
Mhm.
like right nestled there, you know, in your
Squishy.
iliac crest, you
Mhm.
know. So good to know.
Yeah.
So that's the question I'm bringing up that I'm just answering without even being asked,
No,
even though
so
actually,
important.
you know, you have asked yourself.
Yes.
And yeah, I just think we need to be like all on the same page in some way, any
Definitely.
way that we can be on the same page with
Mhm.
our differences. And to me is a bigger piece. It's a more important piece for me than just where do I stand.
Totally.
You know, mutual respect is just everything. So
that is such an important point that like at its base level, everyone wants to have some level of choice. Like I think that is a universal that even if it's not once you've become pregnant, but just even before that, having that awareness of our cycles, of our bodies, knowing what our pulse is like, knowing where our ovaries are, and knowing just these really basic things that help us to make.
And we can pump and massage and agitate respectfully. You can just be like, I'm sorry, but you know, it's okay. Like I tell people, I'm like, when you're massaging and you're, you know, doing your douching, you can just be like, if there's a soul that's wanting to inhabit right now, I just want you to know I'm not your home. And I have a friend who really wants a baby. And if you're picking me, you're probably really cool. So
Yeah,
because we're all cool. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, well, why don't I just send it over to so-and-so who's like wanting a baby right now? Or I'll think of a client who's like, I'm helping with fertility, who wants a baby. And I'll be like, well, that's what seems like a really cool soul wanting to inhabit.
Yeah.
I'll say the person's address.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, literally, I do
love
these.
note to the
Yeah. I'm like, go find your mama, go find your family. I'm not it. And that's okay. And I totally want you to go find what you're looking for. So we can respect this process and make it just this beautiful, sacred journey. And we're allowed to put boundaries up into the spirit world too. When you're being intimate with your partner, we're allowed to take a moment. And, you know, I've done this throughout all the years. I've been with, you know, my partner for 27 years, which is like, what? And, you know, and we love our intimacy and we're both fertile. And so, you know, we've had to even put up some like shared protective barriers. So I just want to talk about also like, you know, if you know, we make babies in male-female related relationships, which are not the only ones that exist, by the way. And I love all, you know, all relationships, because we get to choose that too. Who do we want to be with? You know, and that could be anybody you want. So when it is male-female related, which is, you know, that igniting of making a baby, the hormones that make a babe, you know, what about men? I think they could be using a more responsible role too. So why not they go make parsley tea? So, you know, you can douche in the morning, you know, if it seemed like you didn't pull out or you weren't using a condom, or you feel like maybe that was a little, wow, that was pretty cool. So if that felt good, kind of got to wonder, you know what I mean? You know, these are natural things. These are real things we share with people that were pleasure driven. And the more pleasure you felt, the more of depths and the more merging that happened. And that's how babies are like, ooh, emerge. Let me look at that contract.
Yeah.
So I also have like, I don't have baby contracts and I'm not signing a baby contract. So you may as well just not come on in. And then I can just freely do as I wish, pleasurably with my partner.
Yeah, I love that. Like incorporating your partner in any piece of this, like any part of fertility and reproductive health, because as we were saying earlier, it's like people want to know, and it's such a beautiful process to get to share if your partner is open to that, being able to like just share what's going on in your body, the feelings that you're both having. And I feel like just opening up that communication can be so powerful.
And more are interested in being involved than not, no matter how many women want to kind of have this like, oh, he doesn't want to know. I'm like, actually, I think it's about education and another connection and another, you know, sacred conversation, not a trigger conversation. You know, like, you don't help me. It's like, oh, violent communication. I would like you to help me. Nonviolent communication. I would like help. I would like you to be educated, and I would like you to be involved, you know, because we're the one who would get pregnant, and we are both saying we don't want to. So let's talk about you making parsley tea so I can douche the next morning or later on, you know. You don't have to stop all your cuddle and your fun and be like, I gotta go douche. Like, I've never done that. I'm like, no, I'm staying right here, hanging out in the love. I want to be in the love juice for a little while. You know what I mean? Totally. And, you know, fall asleep in, you know, my partner's arms and all that lovely stuff. And, you know, and then I know you know, I can do that douche a little bit later, you know, and then do the downward motion.
It's so inspiring. I feel like all these are such simple, tangible things that we can all learn. And even though I think that this is such a challenging topic because really access is so different in different communities and along the lines of privilege, and who has access to abortion opportunities, who has access to fertility tracking, all these things that can be really expensive. And I know that this can also be like a confusing topic along like birth control and like what should people be doing for birth control. Like that's such a hard and triggering and challenging like topic for so many people too. So I think that this also really calls for a lot of self-compassion and community compassion, and just realizing that this is not an easy topic for anyone and not an easy topic to deal with on the collective. So yeah, really just incorporating as many of these like simple awareness techniques that can make us feel healthier. Yeah.
And the beauty of this conversation is reading your pinky is free.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, parsley, and parsley, like you get a whole bundle of parsley. Half that bundle of parsley makes like, you know, a couple douches, you know, because the douche is like, you know, you have your you want to get a stainless steel enema bucket. My favorite is Med Essentials, you know, so that's the one I love, but there's all kinds of stainless steel enema buckets online. People don't sell them, you know, per se for legal reasons. You get it online, but it's a forever enema bucket. You know what I'm saying? And it's not just enema. It comes with a douche applicator. And it just doesn't really get promoted as douche because we stopped doing them, you know? And that's unfortunate, you know? So you're not going to strip yourself out. I mean, you're not doing parsley. Like, okay, you can't be not using pull out. You have to consider some play and refraining when you're ovulating. I just want to finish here and we'll go to these lovely other questions you have. When you're ovulating, it's important that you communicate with your partner so they can pull out accordingly. And maybe for some women who feel like they're extreme fertile and they're like, it's like, well, that might not be a bad idea with the condom, you know? And I just want to remind everyone, there's all kinds of other really great things you can do with your partner. And you don't really have to have like penetration, you know, there's all kinds of other things. And you can even like penetrate in other ways too. I mean, there's like endless amount of things. Think about it. Think about some wonderful things you've done for a moment that were not, you know, that kind of, you know, normalcy of like what we think it's about.
Yeah.
And so you also just could like play in different ways, and it keeps things alive. And then it makes it that much more exciting when it's safe time.
Totally.
You're like, ew, we can really merge now. Okay, this is great. So, you know, it's us being educated as, you know, and these are things that are cheap. Parsley's like $1.99, you know? So hopefully I am speaking to what Abby's bringing up, which is such a very important part, which is like, how do we make sure that things that we're talking about are accessible to all people?
Yeah.
You know, big deal.
I love that you're so about that. Okay, well, I see we have a question from Rochelle, I believe, that I know you have to leave at 9:30. I see on the chat,
Okay.
but we can go ahead and do a quick dive in. So a question is, what essential oils can I use for mold, topically or aromatically? Do I need to dilute the essential oils before applying them topically?
Okay. I think another one of your questions was about mold also.
Yeah, it's the same question. But
Okay, very good. Hi, Rochelle. Okay, so when you're using, so there's a couple essential oils that are really incredibly good for mold. One is lemon, and that's not something I would use on a put on the skin every day. So you do want to like wear some gloves. And you also have cinnamon leaf. Cinnamon bark is extremely expensive, but cinnamon leaf is not. And so these are two. Tea tree is the other one. That just absolutely can kill mold in the house. So you can't dilute them. You need to kind of put like drops along a window seal. And what I usually say to do is to do, like, if you're going to do, hydrogen peroxide and do a cleaning, some people, they have massive issues, and it even goes into like, do I like bleach? Do I want to use bleach? No. Is the black mold, killing your lungs? Yes. So sometimes we have to be a realist on what's needed, but do your cleaning process, and then the essential oil is what keeps it away. So you want to be really clear that you're not asking the essential oil to kill and get rid of the mold. You have to clear it, and it's what keeps it cleared. So it needs to be in a concentrate. I've tried small amounts of, like, buy a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, don't dilute it, and add your essential oil, like add a bunch of cinnamon and lemon in there. To where it kind of has a strong enough of a smell where you're like, oh, I don't want to get that on my skin. Yeah. Maybe if it was a 12-ounce bottle of hydrogen peroxide, I'd probably be doing 2 mils of lemon and 1 mil of cinnamon leaf, or 1 mil of tea tree. Those are, here nor there. You can do either or. And that would be my solution. And then you could do a little spray along there, and then you've got a little killing and kind of breaking up agent, along with the kind of keeping it wiped out. Yeah. So I think that answers the question, right? But yeah, the moment you dilute them, and then they're usually diluted with the oil, doesn't help with mold at all, and not lovely on a windowsill, unless it's wood. So.
And then is there anything that you would advise people take internally if they know that they've had issues with mold? Or is
I have there's a lot. I have 2 favorites. One, you're going to have to just know where you're buying it, because it is an endangered species, but there's people cultivating it. Artemisia herbs is one of them, in Dixon, New Mexico, and OSHA root. And you could do a California OSHA. But most places that have OSHA, like your herb stores and such, they have found a really good source. And you just literally chew and chew and chew, and it's super pungent, and it'll kind of infiltrate all of your sinuses. And the thing you have to remember with mold is it gets in all of your orifices. So ears, eyes, nose, mouth, and it's all over your linens and fabrics. The most important thing is fabrics. And how clean are your fabrics, and how is your mattress, and have you looked under your mattress? Like, there's really important, curtains on a moldy windowsill. I'm like, no curtains. You got to do blinds or do something else. Find some other alternative, So there's that. The other one is spilanthes. Spilanthes flowers, and it is going to numb out your mouth, and there's only so much you can take in.
They're so funny.
Yeah, they're wild. But you just do a little chew, and you'll get a little numb, but it'll have that same. And you can also put spilanthes, like in a steam inhalation, and you could be doing steams with the OSHA or the spilanthes. And the other one is Elecampane leaf. And that makes a great steam, and it's pretty inexpensive at an herb store. And, yeah, that's what I would consider. Ellen campaign you could grow in your garden very easily too. It's quite beautiful. So those are my 3 favorite plants. And then certainly, I mean, I make a lot of mold formulas. So you might want to think about a custom blend and tell me a little bit about what kind of mold, and tell me a little bit about, what your main symptoms are, because on my custom blend, when you go to that page, there's a whole questionnaire that you fill out. But mold, I kind of need to think about someone's constitution more than just kill the mold, because I might really affect somebody's body, because there are a lot of dry and heating herbs. So the more I know, the more I made, essential oils are brilliant for molds. Let me tell you one essential oil. If I had to pick one essential oil, this is for all my students who know me from years gone by. If I was going to be on a deserted island and I had mold and I can only have one oil with me, what would it be?
It's a good question if you're on a tropical island.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would, I have 2 actually, but it would be Niaouli, not neroli, Niaouli, Niaouli. I have it. It's not that easy to find, and it's quite inexpensive, by the way, as far as essential oil. And it's very sustainable too. We need that for the world of essential oils. But yeah, Niaouli, and it would be like 6 drops twice a day. You have to put a little oil on your hand and do a chest rub with it and swab it in your ears, but you can't put it straight on your skin every day. You just need to kind of have a little salve or something and make a rub. It'll totally remind you of Vicks Vapor Rub if you knew that as a child. It's got a very mucolytic, but it's incredible for congestion and mold, which go together. And the other one I would do for children, because Niaouli might be a bit much every day, though they could use it once in a while, Elemi, Elemi. And it's been one of the go-tos I've talked about through the last 2.5 years with COVID. It's my go-to, Elemi and green myrtle. That's what I've been putting on my mask to make sure anything coming at me is killed on contact. And it's what I put on my upper warrior lymph to make sure that I'm in my healthiest immune system as I'm out in the world. And just to feel safe in these COVID times. So it's used in that way too, but it's great mold plants.
Awesome. Wow. Those are great suggestions. And then I see that Rochelle had one follow-up question on diffusing. And would you diffuse any of these oils?
I mean, I like diffusing, but I'm going to be honest. Think about how much ether and air is in the room, and then that diffuser's just slowly going. And diffusers innately usually put off a little bit of steam. So you're kind of creating a moist environment, which is what you don't want for mold. And you're just not going to infiltrate the space in the way you need. I certainly think that I could go all into the energetics of like mold go away, and like holding boundaries in your space. But I don't think you're actually going to see a difference because of its moist nature and just the dispersion level. It's too diluted, but maybe if you had that little diffuser right next to your bed and you were sleeping with essential oils, it wasn't about the room. It was about like right next to you while you're sleeping. That could be really smart. And Niaouli, you would not need very much in a diffuser for it to go a long way, because it's pretty strong and potent when you smell it. But it's very effective and actually quite gentle on the body for being so kind of hello.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. I feel like so often with essential oils, it's about like diffusing it and just using a little bit and being very minimalistic. But it sounds like with molds, you have to be a little bit more hardcore.
Well, I'm teaching aromatherapeutics on a beautiful 60-acre farm in Petaluma. And I'm registering. The registration is through Gathering Time. They are the ones who are hosting my Aromatherapeutics 3-day weekend. And it's August
26th through the 28th, I believe.
26th through 28th, the last weekend of August. So it's right around the corner. And we'll be doing a copper limbic still distillation. And we'll also be doing a very small yield glass distillation to show you you can watch the process. And then I'm doing formulations and chemistry and properties and functions. But one of the things I put in there was dosaging and respect the drop, as I call it. So, how do we learn to respect the drop and recognize how much chemistry is sitting in a drop of essential oil? And that way you can look at those high yields to get that small amount of oil. It adds up in the same way as like how much tincture you would need per its oil. It's just massive yield and then smaller bottles. And then you think like, what? I only get this for that much?
Yeah.
And it's kind of, but it's also giving people all over the world, as long as it's sustainable, fair trade, respectable, because there's a lot of corruption in aromatherapy. I've dealt with it my whole career. That's why I go back to the same crops over and over and over, because I want to be able to guarantee, what it is I'm offering, because there is so much problem with it. And so, yeah. Aromatherapeutics, and I'll be talking about all those plants and their property functions. My handouts are like years and years old, like well over 15 times revised. So like what you go home with is really like set you up for the first date of your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe y'all want to come to my aromatherapeutics class.
And I know that your essential oil blends are so powerful, and people are always saying like, wow, this changed my life. And that's such an incredible opportunity to receive your care. So if anyone's looking for some care that's really affordable and accessible, and you just get all the love from DeAnna, then definitely look into our essential oil blends on the website. I'll include that in the show notes. Great. So next question, this is an anonymous question.
Okay.
So again, if that's ever you out there who's just wanting to ask a question and not have your name out there, totally good. So this is a question about stiffness after chemotherapy. So this person is wondering about Ayurvedic approaches to recovery, because they just had a full round and now is having a lot of stiffness, especially in their lower back and spine, knees, and ankles. And she says that exercise and movement feel good. So it's more just about like, there's maybe something stuck and it doesn't feel inflammatory. And then they also have a question because she was saying that she's going to do another round of oral chemotherapy.
Okay.
And so figuring out what is the right amount of treatment to do now, or what are the approaches to do now versus what are the things to do once the chemotherapy is completely done.
Okay. So I like this next question, which seems like we went from one topic to another, but it kind of segues from aromatherapeutics, because one thing I can tell you is, I work with people who are medicated and people who choose not to be medicated. I'll work with anybody. So I want to know about my medications and how to respect them, because that also is a choice, medical freedom. So, I like to help people figure out what their choices are. So we want and need to respect this decision to do chemo, and that can be life-saving. So very important move, but that's not a time I use essential oils. So I will have all kinds of essential oils on that oral chemo, and even like, okay, I'm on my own now what? And then that's a scary little moment, even though you made it, and then essential oils rock on anti-cancer prevention and, that type of thing. So, but right now I would say, my babies are going to stay in their, cupboard. And those essential oils are just too strong a medicine, and they compete with that chemo. And I want that chemo to do its thing. So that's not the world I would go into. But what I do, and what you do need to know is, that chemo's so much better than it used to be. I mean, oh my gosh, in my 35 years, I'm telling you, it is so much better than it used to be. Way more selective. And so you're not just kind of stripping and crossing your fingers, but there's still a stripping. I mean, it's part of its process is getting those cells, out and changing them. So it's dry. we're going to go back to dehydration. I'm not going to just go basic though. I'm going to go a little different direction because it's dry to the bone. So yes, that means your lymph is dry and working hard, by the way. When you have cancer, your lymph is working its butt off. That's why they check your inflammatory markers, because your immune system is what rules your inflammation, your inflammatory markers. So, your tissues are affected. That's why the skin gets burned, things happen, but it's really bone. And so what you need to know is that this is about cartilage building. So there's some food grade building blocks to get to the answer here. Food grade building blocks for anyone that has bone health issues. And we could just leave it at D3 and how important it is. But there's a trine of building block I like to talk about a lot, which is collagen, hyaluronic acid, and lecithin. And we get, many of these things, like you get all of those. You may not be a meat eater, but I am pro bone broth, even with cancer. Some people are very not about meat with cancer. So you'll have to make your decision there. But I think it's like, you don't need a bunch of flesh to deal with, but you do need the bone broth, the marrow, and you're going to get all of those, the collagen, the hyaluronic acid, the lecithin, all in one. And then runny egg yolk, you're going to get tons of lecithin. Sunflower butter, you're going to get tons of lecithin. A lot of lecithin in soy, but I'm just not a big fan on many levels, maybe more political, so you can decide where you stand. But it's there. That's your lecithin. And then our collagen is in anything bones, which is why it's really good for bones. So that would be like the things that are, making the stiff. Stiff is anything, something is gone. Like, think about it. When something dries out, it goes hard. So stiff is your tissues that used to be pliable are now shrinking and going stiff. So it's pulled your minerals. So the other thing is you have to think green, 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 everything green, like literally green drinks, cucumber, celery, kale juice. Like, you got to just get mass amounts of minerals because a bunch of your minerals and vitamins were leached. And that's why, gray salt electrolytes would be brilliant because it's made of vitamins and minerals. That's what our essential electrolytes are. They rebuild the kidneys. So now let's talk about another piece of this story, which is the hips. So if you put your hands to the back of your hips, so this is your kidney meridian runs through there, your bladder right down the back of right through your knee is right down the middle and up into your hip and all the way up your spine. Closest to your spine is your bladder meridian. And when we can't hold water and when we're getting dehydrated, everything gets dumped to the bladder and it puts more pressure on it. And it's all fluid you wished you would have absorbed, didn't get absorbed. So now you're dumping it out. And the kidney meridian is right on the inside of that thigh. And then it runs kind of with the gallbladder around the hips. And our knees get the name from the kidneys. The kidney meridian runs right through it. So the back of our legs are all this huge amount of like our water flow and our water volume, making our blood flow. That's our bladder kidney. So, this is common because chemo dries you out. So you still need your gray salt. You need your omega oils. With chemo, I'm about like literally 10 tablespoons, 10,000 milligrams of like a light, low grade, omega, formula, like Udo's Choice, or the other one is like Total EFA. So you get a nice roundabout, and you can, then eat all those raw seed oils too. Little pumpkin, little sunflower, little hemp, coconut. You can go for all these, eat tahini like crazy. Bone Nutrients 101 tahini. Great amount of hyaluronic acid in that. very, very large group of people that are brilliant, amazing people. And you know, and it's like, it's not about what you did or didn't do. You know, it's about kind of your, what they call kala. It's in your blueprint. You know, it's literally in, you're in a destiny line, and it's one of your crossroads of life. And we have those, you know, and, you know, that shame isn't really going to do anything for you.
Yeah.
You know, you might as well kind of like pull yourself out of that picture and just start being like, well, I'm part of that group. So here I am, and I'm going to do whatever, you know, I need, and I'm going to trust my body and one decision at a time, because there's a lot of decisions to be made. And the other thing I had mentioned was, you know, talking about death doesn't bring it closer to you. So being able to actually know that that's really the fear, is that, you know, cancer takes lives. And so being able to like have those natural conversations takes the pressure off of that crossroads. And I also like to always say, because I, you know, so many people that I'm with, to the end of their, you know, timelines, it's with cancer. And I like to always make the point of saying, like, I want you to remember how many brilliant, amazing, phenomenal people have left in the same way. There is no right or wrong way to die. We leave however we are supposed to, and it is divine no matter how. Some are harder to grok than others, right? Some are harder to understand than others. Some are more tragic than others. But it just shows how much love is there to the end of our lives. And so, you know, we want to make sure we don't get this shame or any kind of bad shit, is to be realistic and to know there's options and you're at a crossroads, and then you just like stay with what you want and you make sure you have your building blocks together. Losing weight in cancer is not what you really want to have. So, you know, those building blocks are everything. And we're talking about foods, you know, and I usually put people in kelp capsules too, you know, and I like, what's the name of it? Ooh, something organics. Maybe it's Ocean Organics. Oh my gosh.
I can look it up.
Yeah.
Put it in the show notes. Yeah.
But yeah, so 2 kelp capsules, you know, morning and night, and you're just getting that multivitamin straight from the ocean, protein, electrolytes, minerals, and from a veggie. So
we love our kelp.
I'm a total seaweed freak. So I can't help it. It's just helped so many people and myself.
Well, thank you so much for all that really inspiring and heart-touching information. I think, yeah, cancer is one of the scariest and hardest things that many people experience in their lives. So that's really so important to keep the shame out of it and keep that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just keep feeling your best as you can through this process. So we have a couple of follow-up questions on essential oils. Going back to that and I think oils in general, from Ms., who also mentioned that CBD is really helpful for chemo as well. So, and then the questions that Ms.
absolutely
has.
is.
Yeah, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm a huge fan. And yes, I would absolutely say for pain, for less stress, and for inflammation, there are so many reasons why CBD is good, and even small amounts of THC. You know, I mean, you got to, you know, be careful going around being stoned all day, but, you know, at the end of your day, or, you know, tiny little bits, microdosing, I mean, that really takes the edge off and calms the nerves. And the calmer your nerves are, the less inflammation, your adrenals, less stress you have, and the less inflammation you make. And that's makes it an incredible anti-inflammatory, but that's proven by chemistry. Through the cannabinoids and the terpenes.
That's great. Awesome. And then the other questions Ms. has are, can you please explain the different applications for Mahanarayan oil and Bringage oil?
Okay. So first off, I'm going to answer it, but I want you to know, I hope everybody looks at my products online. And I hope you know that when you click on it, it has my label. My label comes up and you can look right at every single thing on that label. If you haven't really paid attention to my labels, I am telling you, I put so much education on my labels. I'm even like, this is how you cook with this spice, and this is what this spice likes to be with. And that information is on there. But what it says on that label for Bringrage is it's tonifying, and it's really good for people that are more kapha stagnant. So it is tonifying, it's invigorating, and it's very cleansing. So it's cooling, tonifying, cleansing. That makes it good for kapha. That makes it really good for pitta, and not as favorable for vata. But do remember, it's still in sesame oil, and sesame oil is your number one vata oil. So that's the balancing there in the Bringrage. So anyone could use it if they feel, what if you're vata kapha? You still got the sesame, but you got all that like healthy tissue tonifying. Bringrage is one of the most common hair tonics in India. It's paired with amla. You can go almost anywhere and find a jasmine scented Bringrage and amla oil. And they put it in their scalp to keep their hair lustrous. They're really into like invigorating scalp massages for lustrous hair and creating blood flow to the top of your head. I put a lot of hair loss essential oils in Bringrage. I'm pointing to my products right now. I'm all right there.
Yeah,
Don't you know? I'll show you. So, I'll put the essential oils right in that bottle and then sell it as a formula for scalp, for hair loss. Like if somebody has, more like stress related hair loss or COVID related hair loss, because there's a whole lot of it going on. I'll put in, I'll take a 4 ounce of Bringrage and I'll add in like 20 drops of Palmarosa, and another 20 drops of spikenard. And then I'll do another 10 drops of Roman chamomile. And I'll make that into a calming, lowering the adrenal, balance in the body, which is that stress and that hot, dry hormone is what makes that hair loss. But that's what Bringrage is known for most in India. And then Mahanarayan has over 30 different plants in it. It's considered, it's warming, and you can even tell by color. It's kind of a beautiful like red amber. So it shows you it's warm. It is blood circulatory. So it's really good for getting blood flow. It's better for moving the lymph. So it's very like lymph and blood and muscle and just invigorating, but more in a blood related way. So it's used with like cardio, very vigorous tissue building. It's incredible for vata. It's incredible for kapha. I don't see it hurting pitta. I use it all the time. It doesn't overheat me because it is quite a nice balanced blend. But, if it's hot outside, Mahanarayan feels pretty hot for me. Whereas vata is like, they love to use it all year round. That also becomes a nausea oil. So Mahanarayan is a snortable nasal insufflation called nausea. And, it's cute because I'll have people do nausea with me when they're in Panchakarma. And there's like, excuse me. They're like, where's the dropper? And I'm like, well, if you use a dropper, it goes right back down in your throat. You got to learn how to like you got to get up into the lymph in your brain. I'm like, think about it breaking up the cobwebs in your brain. Yes. That's how much you want to get it up in there. So you have to, I have to a little exaggerate it and get people exaggerating it. And then you have this whole other upper channel experience. So Mahanarayan's amazing to, it's kind of all in one. It's like, it's going to like soften your feet the quickest as a foot rub. It's going to be a scalp oil. You can snort it to get it up into the lymph in your brain and your sinuses. I mean, it's to me, it's probably my, I'm sure it is the oil that I sell the most of all of my oils. The ashwagandha bala, amazing, nourishing. It's even silkier when you put it on your skin. So nutritive for like the vata dry. That would be perfect. Abhyanga massage oil with chemo. like literally anointing your, tissues and keeping them really juicy and nourished. So those are a little bit about it, but that Mahanarayan is kind of my all-in-one, and it smells like India. So, it just has this like really nice, beautiful aromatic to it, so.
Wow, sounds lovely. I'm like, oh, I want to go get one of all of them. Sounds great. We'll have all those in the show notes too. So then there's one more question from Ms. about the essential oils. Do you have a recommended company that tests the essential oil constituents?
Yeah, when I get my essential oils from two of my primary companies, they go through a chemist. And so, I'm able to know, what I'm getting. And I do think that's an important thing. One of the things I more teach, because I'm going to be really honest, even if I go back to the same crops, because I know the constituents of that crop. And I mean, I've been going same crops now for 30 years. Wow. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. Yeah.
So it's like, and I know, but sometimes it'll still smell a little different. So if you really want to know your chemistry, yes, you can put it on a, on a graph, and you can do the gas chromatology. You can like look at the whole, makeup. And that has become way cheaper through the years because more people are wanting to see what their chemistry is. But if you buy through a chemist, or if you buy through a company who routinely watches those and then goes to the same place over and over and isn't just foraging for, lavender from anywhere, you can pretty much guarantee it. And then I'll get a batch once in a while and I'll know like, oh, that is way more lemony. That's got more aldehydes, or whoa, there's that like powdery kind of dewy finish. And I'll know that's, the sign of a sesquiterpene. So I was taught my first aromatherapy teacher, Marcella Vabre, shout out. Wow, he changed my life. Him and Horst Reckelbacher from the founder of Aveda. They were extremely instrumental in my aromatherapy career at 19.
Wow.
In San Francisco. And Marcel, his whole thing was about teaching chemistry by smell. So that's what I'll be doing in the aromatherapeutics class is like, how do you smell a sesquiterpene, a terpene, and aldehyde? Because you could have like 10 different rosemaries on the market and, you're still going to have to be able to be like, what kind of rosemary is this? What, and then those chemistries are more dry and hot and cold and wet. And then you start learning how to elementally smell that chemistry. And then the formulations I teach how to do is all elemental. Like how do you put them on an elemental graph according to their chemistry and then start making a sound formula for that person who's cold. You've got the warming oils. Somebody's dry. What are the nourishing oils? And you make sure the formula is actually made for them. Not just made for an illness. Some I can just do and then everyone can use them. Like my Yeast Away rocks yeast. And I made it tridoshic and I spent years on that formula, which you can get online. And I have now reformulated my COVID. I have a COVID kid and I got a COVID adult and it's an immune booster. Like I have just like dialed that thing in over the last couple of years. I feel really confident. I've been using it and very successfully. So yeah, so some formulas, you want to learn how to make a tridoshic formula if it's going to market. You want it to work for almost anyone, but if I'm working with just a human, then I get to really design it around the human with the issue at hand. So so I think that's an important piece. And I do think it's important to go to companies who can tell you about the chemical constituents. It's funny, I took that off my label. I used to always have the two primary chemical constituents in my, just right there. And just through the years, it kind of ended up falling off the label with new labeling. And I have been in this like, I should go back to putting those constituents on my label. Because I was making a point a long time ago when nobody was making that point.
Yeah.
Now there's very big companies making that point, But I don't know if they're holding the proper ethics around respecting the drop and sourcing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to know what you're buying in the world of essential oils. I mean, it's been like that forever. You know, you could put a bunch of geraniol in there and drown it out, and you wouldn't know if you didn't have a nose of rose geranium. You wouldn't know someone just threw a bunch of lab geraniol in there. You know, so there's a lot of corruption, and we need to have some pretty revered respect from who is growing these plants. And I don't want to take away those crops from anyone who needs you know, who needs to make money and have a business, but I want to make sure they're paid properly. And that's always a tricky one, but you know, I do what I can to make sure I know where I'm going.
Yeah, great. And then one more question that we have from the chat. Thank you all so much for your questions today. Is from Rochelle again, who says, I've been hearing my heartbeat in my ears when I'm in bed. Is that from adrenal fatigue or something else?
Okay. Well, I could just say yes. So I think you're onto something. I think you probably know the answer. We do have a hard time maintaining a natural ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom in a calm way when we have an imbalance of adrenaline and cortisol levels in our adrenals. And yes, fire rises in the body like in a house, and adrenaline is like whoosh. And so it'll make a you know, you might be having some mild tachycardia. Some people feel it pounding out, and that means the pericardium's kind of tightening up around the heart. That's the sac your heart, you know, lives in, and it's really lubricated. And when it started flared, it starts tightening up around it and pounds it. So yes, I would say you are probably looking at that. But I want to just give a little bit of a moment to like, it's the answer to kind of what could you do to calm that down. So I'm going to give you a little advice that's built into your body. You don't have to buy this or anything. It's called breath. It's called breathing, for real. And when we hold our breath, like what if you're laying there trying to sleep, but you hold your breath? Or if you're thinking a little bit much and you're like holding, it will make pounding heart, and it'll cause your adrenals to feel like they need to go into survival because you're not getting enough oxygen. And we really are about high oxygen when we're asleep. You know, our breath is more regulated if we know regulated breath. So, you know, I think that, you know, and if you're a mouth breather without knowing it, you're not getting enough oxygen, and then your body's pulling adrenaline instead of going to bed. Wow. So you have to mouth closed. How can you breathe through your nose? That's the first number one, right? You're going to have to breathe through your mouth if you can't through your nose. But if you can breathe through your nose, you want to inhale and exhale. And then, you know, a lot of people know my natural breathing technique, but it's not a technique really. It's just how we breathe. And oxygen is the best anti-inflammatory around. And it's the foundations of H2O, water, you know, and how do we put out inflammation? How do we put a fire out? A bucket of water will do. So there's our water needed to cool down. And so when we inhale, we actually breathe all the way from our loins, our pelvic floor, our root chakra, and we breathe to the top of our head. And then we exhale and we breathe and inhale and exhale all the way back to the root. Okay. And in that, we actually expand. So I always talk about with breath, we have to meet the world every time we inhale. And then every time we exhale, we get to come back to self and root back to our self baseline. So we learn to suck it in and suck it up. And when we're thinking, we start sucking it in and sucking it up, and then we're not getting the oxygen, and then we're in a holding pattern, and then the adrenals are like, I can't breathe. You know what I mean? And literally, the body's giving you a stress response from not getting enough breath oxygen. So anything you can do to just like lay down in bed and just start doing big, full belly breaths. And you have to, again, no control. Like, are you controlling your breath when you're asleep? Nope. We don't have to control our breath. It's voluntary. It just happens. So, you know, you can just like go with it. And so you just have to wait, and you just have to be willing to expand instead of suck it up and meet the world, and then find yourself, and then meet the world and and you'd be amazed at how much you'll just fall asleep. And then you hopefully will hold that pattern longer while you're sleeping, which makes for better dreams, better night's rest, all those things, and more hydration and oxygen while we're sleeping. Yeah. Great. So that I think is an important question, but I just kind of took us to like, what's that remedy? That would really help. I'm also a big fan of palmarosa, which is, really another inexpensive oil, and palmarosa is for lockjaw, or I'm sorry, TMJ, and like clenching of the jaw. So you just put like a couple drops on your jaw at night, each side if you're an adult, 1 drop if you're a kid, because it's super kid safe. And then you take a couple more drops and put it down on your hips, and then you just start kind of doing some breath, and it's a nerve regulator. So it's helping you to kind of regulate your nerves, calm down your adrenals, find your place of replenishment.
And do you have a recommendation for how to keep your mouth closed while you sleep if you do find yourself waking up with dry mouth?
Well, I've had to really curb myself from mouth breathing, and I'll still, like, every, I don't know, a couple times a year, I'll sort of, it'll happen again. And then I have to kind of restructure. So, I mean, I really did do the tape my mouth shut.
Yeah, I want to try that.
It was just really funny. But I mean, it taught me to really, and you can't do it when you're congested, because it's not going to work. But, and it put me on my edge as far as like, I can't breathe. And then I had to be like, no, DeAnna, you can. You need to calm down to do it. So it put me through a little loop. I've only done that a couple times in my life. And now I just sort of kind of tried to get a pattern in my space where each time I roll over, now some people don't move a lot. I'm a little bit more of a mover at night. So when I do my rollover, I just make sure I kind of go back into breathing, and I kind of have a just conscious little thing built in that's like, close your mouth.
Reset.
Yeah. So I think you might just have to kind of, do a little bit of waking up, closing your mouth, or you wake up, is your mouth open, close it, you might have to play with it a little bit until it becomes more natural, and then you can just sleep with your mouth shut. Yeah. So I've had to do this one too, but that's, those are the only 2 tricks I've seen work.
Yep. It's a good trick. I hear about it too. I'm like, I need to get some Scotch tape and
I know.
Well, that is great. I think we have just covered so many great bases today. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge with us. And
thank you.
It's been amazing. So we'll just wrap up by giving a plug for our incredible Portugal trip coming up. DeAnna is going to be leading an amazing month-long clinical Ayurvedic herbalism course in Portugal, and it is going to be absolutely fantastic. So do you have any other notes on that?
Well, it's 24 days if a month is scaring you.
Yeah, exactly. Just 24
it's 24 days and it's 3 days off. So you get to travel and play, and it's done by 4. So we also have evenings with a beautiful little town next to us, so there's some play and exploration, but it is 21 days of learning all the Ayurvedic clinical foundations, which is like how to be your own health detective. You may want to bring it into a practice you have. You may be working on becoming an Ayurvedic practitioner. I don't give hours towards anything like that. I'm just an independent teacher with years of experience. But if you're in that zone, it's going to be some amazing things to take into your Ayurvedic practice. And you may just be like a parent, or you even are an independent person and you want to be your own physician, like you want to be your own health detective. And so these are the foundations: how to read the face and the tongue, and even learning the foundations of how to read your pulse, and knowing about the symptoms of all the organs in your body. Like the handout is like, oh my gosh, how many pages is that? Is my book pages, now? It's ridiculous.
Yes, a textbook, multiple textbook worth of
You don't need an extra
knowledge.
piece of luggage, but you will need room in your luggage for this book. You might just take it on with you and keep reading.
Just keep reading on the airplane.
But it's a life book. you know, like you're wondering about your liver. Boom, there's multiple places you can look it up. What's the symptoms? What do you do? So it's not only tracking emotional and physical, tracking your symptoms and becoming honest and understanding, but understanding how your body works. I'm sorry, but that's where the power is. And, you know, I see that with kids lit up when I teach them about their body, you know, or show them the face map.
Yeah.
And they're just like, what? And then they know how to track themselves. They get it. And then remedies. Like, what do you do for these things amongst the food or the oils or the Ayurvedic plants available, or what might even be in your backyard? Because, you know, I am a Westerner. So Western herbs are, you know, my home medical medicine. It's where I started, was in my own backyard and learning Western herbalism. And then I branched into aromatherapy, and it has always stuck to me as just like the most primo potent medicine. You know, and then I've gone into the Ayurvedic herbs and herbs of different cultures and different countries, and the ones that are most important for me to, you know, either keep alive in their culture, you know, keep on the earth,
Definitely,
you know, or the ones that just are tried and true and they work. So I want to pass them on to people, because we need to be able to really work with the things that we know, you know, are making those changes, so we can start trusting our plants more and trusting our bodies more and trusting our choices more.
I love that. Yes.
So, and we're going to do all that in Portugal.
All that and so much more. So we'll put the link to that where you can register on our website, DeAnnaEssentials.com. And also we have an amazing deal. If you come with a bunkmate or someone to share a room with, then you each get $1,200 off. So definitely think about what friend or sweetie you want to bring along to learn together.
That means you go to Portugal for $4,000 plus a plane ticket. And by the way, my plane ticket was $488.
Yeah, same. They're still
like they're super
price.
cheap flights right now.
Yeah.
Like super cheap. So think about that, you know, maybe bring your partners, you learn health together. So you could share a bed, or a friend you really love, you know, or somebody in your family. And then it's $8,000, $4,000 each is amazing for a trip like this.
Yeah. For a life of knowledge. It's going to be amazing.
Just look up where we're going, and it will be a game changer on is it for you or not? Yes. Because it is really, really beautiful.
Yay. Well, thank you all so much for joining in today. Thank you so much, DeAnna. And we will see you all again in 2 weeks.
Adios.